I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Box Office Pulp, your one podcast stop for movies, madness, moxie, and tonight, even more movies. We're jumping into Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Ernest Cline's novel, Ready Player One, and all of the nostalgia and movie references that go hand in hand with that property. I'm your host, Cody, and joining me today are, coincidentally, two amalgamations of 1980s pop nostalgia shaped to look like human beings. Say hello to G.I. Jamie and Back to the Mic 2. Getting back was only the beginning. I like to think in my head all the Back to the Future movies had cool tagline subtitles.
I like how you picked that for the one franchise that could never land a tagline.
I think they'd all be better that way. Back to the Mic 2, and this time it's personal.
So I just want to point out that I'm currently wearing a denim vest. Not to coincide with the movie. I'm just that big of a jackass.
Oh, I was hoping like that was your thing. You're cosplaying the movie.
You did say while rewatching Ready Player One, you were jealous of Parsifal's ability to pull off a denim vest. And I agree. Like, I wish we could be the fake human being that has to exist to pull off a denim vest, because that's the only way it's going to work. Also, per your intro, can I not be in this episode? And every time you go, Mike, what do you think? And then it's just the opening chords, the Back to the Future theme plays for a second, and then you respond to it like that speech.
Oh, I have a letter in my hand dated from 1860. And then I just read that letter from Mike from the past to the future.
God, that's the dream, isn't it? An entire podcast recorded exclusively through time correspondence.
It's exactly what you want in a podcast, an exchange of letters, because everyone really loves it when your medium is composed entirely of mailed letters.
I just like the idea that one of us is the disembodied score of Alan Silvestri.
That's actually where MB is now.
MB, how do you feel about that? And it's just a Silvestri score booms in the background.
This is the Rocketeer theme.
God, that's so beautiful. MB has become movies.
He has become the Rocketeer.
I said it for you, buddy. I'm glad you
Thank
tagged
you.
up.
God, I love that thing so much. Love that video.
100 years later.
100 years later. So for Ready Player One, I think I have a little bit different opinion than you guys. I had never read the book. My only perception of it really was other people ragging on it. It's kind of picked up a little bit of a reputation, I would say, in maybe the last few years, where people just kind of slag off on the book. So when the movie came around, I didn't know anything about it other than people were just kind of rolling their eyes at the concept. Then the marketing campaign didn't do a whole lot of favors to it. Remember all those weird posters where they just put like Parsifal over the Matrix poster and that kind of stuff?
That was a bad idea.
It was a bad idea. So I went into the movie thinking like, oh boy, come on, Steven, pull me through, buddy. And I thought it was fine. My reaction to it wasn't amazing. I kind of shrugged at it mostly. Like I could recognize there were very cool set pieces. I went back to see it again in a larger theater, and that made a big difference, though, because story aside, just the visual experience of seeing that movie in a giant IMAX kind of setup is phenomenal. The chase scene, where there's, the Tron bikes and everything, that's a lot of fun. From just a visceral experience, that made it worthwhile.
I was a very big fan of the book whenever it first came out, and I remember the year that came out, everyone saying, oh yeah, well that movie's already in development. That'll be out in like a year or two. And it took Steven Spielberg becoming attached to the project to actually push it through the gate. And yeah, I was also very concerned about where this was going, because I was a big fan of the book. I read it whenever it first came out and saw so much aggressive vitriol towards it in this project. By the time it was released, I honestly started thinking, was I just stupid 10 years ago?
It was hard to find people that would stand up for the book online. So it kind of gives you that impression like, oh, if people like this, were they just wrong or they remember it wrong? That kind of mob mentality gets to you.
It turns out, no, that book was just written for 15-year-olds 10 years ago. Shut up about it. Because while this movie, like Zach Penn's screenplay is leaps and bounds above the source material, I feel like there is something genius about the idea of doing essentially Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but with the modern version of the fairy tales that children grew up with, which is something I think was kind of missing on a lot of people who just consider it like a cheap pop culture cash-in. It's like for those of us of these past, I guess, 2 generations, the video games we played and the cartoons we watched, all the secondhand stuff that we absorbed from our parents' childhoods, like that stuff is the mythology of our lives, and it's kind of silly not to play with that.
Yeah. And I think people miss that being very obviously called out by the fact that the main characters' names are literally Parzival and Artemis.
Explain.
Well, it's highlighting the fact that mythology and this quote-unquote nostalgia are the same thing. Nostalgia, the movies, the games, all that are the mythological figures of the past for the current generation or for the future generation, since it takes place in the future. It's being used in much the same way as those figures were. It's why the main characters are named after those mythological figures.
Gotcha. I was confused. I thought you were saying like Parzival had a very specific meaning to this, more so than just their names from mythology. I was super confused for a second.
No, nobody cares about Parzival the Knight.
That's what I was sitting there. I'm like, what? Is that like a thing I should know about?
It is a weird pull.
Right?
But yeah, whenever you look at it like that, not only does Ready Player One seem less silly, it also has a weird inevitability to it. Because really, all of the updates to fairy tales and to the more like medieval style mythology, all that stuff was just regurgitating other forms of mythology that the people who told those stories also grew up on. I mean, the story of King Arthur is a bunch of people getting really nostalgic for Celtic mythology. That stuff they heard as a child. And you see that reverberating like into the 20th century, where it's like, okay, we get adventure serials, which are throwbacks to the pulps. Then we get stuff like Buck Rogers, and then eventually Flash Gordon and Star Trek, which is throwback to those serials. And now we're seeing stuff that's referencing Star Wars, and it just keeps going and going and going to the point where now it's like, okay, it's 2017. Fuck it. Let's just have all the characters interact like it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
It's, to me, kind of the interesting point about this movie is it can be enjoyed, I think, on 2 different levels. One, there's just the knee-jerk reaction of, holy shit, I just got to see a Gundam fighting Godzilla fighting whatever else. Like, there's Chucky murdering people in the same movie. Wow. From a fanboy point of view, that's amazing. Who would have ever guessed we'd get to see something like that? This is the perfect movie to throw on and step through frame by frame, be like, oh my god, there's 10,000 different references and licenses they had to clear. That's amazing. And then on the other hand, there's appreciating it not just as a nostalgia cash grab. So there is a real story being told here that I'm not sure I quite get along with. My limitations on it are kind of like some of the weird thematic stuff where, like at the end of the film, they announce, okay, well, we're going to shut down the system a couple days of the week, so everyone's forced to go outside. And to me, it just didn't quite feel like that was a lesson that was really earned and built upon throughout the movie so much. There's so much hero worship going on for the creator of the system that, I don't know, it didn't quite ring true to me. That felt like something that Spielberg tacked on because, like, yeah, I think it's actually important that we go outside.
Well, I would actually disagree with that, because I feel like the entire movie is hammering one point home, which is all these kids worship Halliday, and through the contest, Halliday is showing them, look how sad my life was. Don't be like me. Have fun in the Oasis, and then log off and live a real life. Kiss people. For the love of God, kiss people.
I mean, it feels though like it's all about loving Halliday, even though I don't know if it was deserved. And even some of the challenges, like the first one in my mind, is all about, hey, you got to look back, which is kind of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink way in my mind of saying, hey, you got to look back at the past. Nostalgia, isn't that awesome?
Well, I mean, the point of that was particularly like go back to the way things were and make decisions differently. Like that was really Halliday's point in the in that memory, was not just going back in time to where, you know, things with the company were more simple, but he just disagreed with how the things unfolded under his watch, and he wishes it just unfolded in a different manner. He's not really happy with where things are.
Yeah, if you look at like Parsifal and really whoever was supposed to win that contest, you could say Halliday was just trying to rewrite history there. Just, I'm going to create a better version of me by showing that person all the things I suck at, right down to recreating the moment he signed the contract, which is something that's not in the book at all, which I thought was a really genius addition by Penn.
Really?
Yeah, because the Klein book also kind of suffers from that problem, but way more, where there's literally not a single thing telling you that real life is better than the Oasis, and then at the end it's like, oh yeah, but real life is better than the Oasis. So Penn tried really, really hard to iron that out, because Halliday isn't sad in the book; he's just Willy Wonka.
See, I love how sad Halliday is in the movie. See, I haven't read the book either, so I'm constantly shocked whenever you tell me what's different. Yeah, I do agree that some of the real world stuff is better. It becomes clear whenever you're rewatching the movie. You can kind of get lost in a lot of the fun, I think, and kind of lose track of the actual main narrative. And it should be in there maybe a little bit thicker, but I also kind of like how it's not sledgehammered over you so much, where it feels slightly preachy. The way it unfolds is a little bit too late in the game. It really comes when Parsifal is having the scene with Ghost or whatever, Halliday, whenever he gets control of the Oasis. And that's where a lot of that stuff comes in. It feels like that should start coming in sooner, a lot sooner. And it does to a degree with Artemis and whatnot. The reality kind of smacks you in the face. I mean, it's about Wade kind of discovering that the real world is a lot more fucked up than just, you know, his one little trailer. I mean, the movie very brilliantly kind of reveals that it's been a dystopian future the entire time. You've just been lost in nostalgia in the Oasis.
Yeah, I really like that.
Which I think is brilliant structure-wise. I do agree it could do a better job, but I do think it's interlaced in there where I feel like a lesser movie would have then had the big message be, and then he turns off the Oasis forever, and everyone needs to go in the real world because that's better. And instead, the ending's more about, hey, balance is needed with this stuff. Don't get lost in stories. Don't keep your head in the sand. It's time to actually go out there. Don't be like me, essentially.
I don't know. They made the real world seem pretty garbage.
That's why we have to make it better, Cody.
No,
I know.
Given the choice, if I were in that world, I'd be like, nah, fuck this, man. Have you been outside? This place is garbage.
I mean, I know you spend all your time in frickin' Ultima Online.
Just look at the real world. They were living on a trailer park stacked vertically. That's just asking for a tornado to fuck all your shit up. No
that is
way.
A good point. Those were not structurally sound.
Not one
Yeah,
bit.
But think about how much better those trailers were versus the trailers we have now.
I did say that when we were watching. I was like, wow, this is legitimately better than the trailer park I grew up in.
Well, it is the future. I mean, heck, they do have drones that deliver pizza, which, oh my god, if I didn't have to deal with a delivery person, I would just order pizza every day.
I do love how that's the subtle hint that we're in a dystopian future. Just pizza being delivered via drone.
That's the one thing that would make me consider, like, maybe the real world isn't so bad. Drones just deliver my stuff.
Perhaps a bit of apocalypse.
Just a smidge. Just a little apocalypse. A little one. But for me, to go back on thematics, the big thing that stuck out was it felt like it was very focused on kind of the hypercapitalization thread. Like that was the thing I was really interested in talking about. You know, the main character is essentially the man and portrays like this overinflated doofus who wants to throw ads over everything you do. You know, when you're walking through the Oasis, which is portrayed as a paradise, he's the guy who wants to ruin it by having ads placed everywhere and who wants to put people into basically indentured service pods so they can data mine for him.
I feel like this is going to be very, very prescient when we look back on it about 20 years from now.
Or 6 months ago. I mean, let's look at the fight for net neutrality right now.
That'd have been a fun Easter egg if they just put in a gigantic Reese's peanut butter cup mug. The bad guy to drink out
It's a
of.
collectible.
Yeah.
But I thought that was actually a very, very brilliant departure from the book that Penn made, which is it seems like a bad decision at the time to just say, oh no, the Oasis is perfect and everyone's happy with it. Because in the book, there's still a very huge class divide where all of the poor kids just have to stay on the homeworld planet and can't afford clothes or toys or actually do anything on the Oasis. And people who have bought their way through it get to do all the cool stuff that you see the kids do later.
I was kind of wondering about that in the movie. I mean, they stress credits and how some people have and some people don't, but they don't really show like how bad that makes your online experience. They made it seem like everybody was like getting to fight Muhammad Ali in the ring, regardless of your status.
Yeah, I thought it was much more interesting to just portray the Oasis as a place where everyone begins on an even footing, so it actually is kind of a paradise worth protecting.
And that lasted for 3 milliseconds, and then one guy had a leg up, and then everything went downhill.
Then he became the god emperor of the Oasis.
Oh, he has all the Team Fortress 2 hats. He is a god amongst us.
Oh.
He has 2 ninjas, run!
Just to get film analysis for a second. It's also I know on this podcast. I'll read from the Poetic Edda.
In this case, it should be like the Super Nintendo installation manual.
I read from Nintendo Power. It's an interesting little allegory about kind of for modern America, where man, we really let our interests distract us from capitalists completely taking over and turning the world to shit while we had our face in the TV for a little bit too long. And then we turned the TV off and looked around and went, holy fucking shit. And the thing that kind of wakes us up, unfortunately, is when the capitalists come for our interests like games and the internet and shit. And oh, it's gone really too far.
And when they turn our toys against us.
Yeah.
That's what I found so ironic about so many people thinking that this movie is what that was. When actually, no, this movie's philosophically the opposite of that. Aggressively so.
Yeah.
This is keep your corporate hands off of the stuff that makes us happy. Also, since we're talking about the main adversary of this movie, can I just point out the performance of Roland Daggett, a.k.a. Krennic.
And whatever bad guy he ends up being in the Captain Marvel movie.
Just being a John Hughes adult throughout this entire movie. Like, that's a legitimately brilliant performance he manages to capture there.
It's got to be a little tough when you get that script and you realize, like, oh, they want me to basically just play a cliche. Like, it's not so much a character as, like, a broad painting of what, like, an 80s evil bad guy is kind of like. Which, a lot of actors would probably just screw that up completely. You have to approach it just right enough to acknowledge the tone without going so far over the top that you're choking to death on the scenery.
Now, I just want somebody at a convention to go up to him and make him read the speech from the end of the Breakfast Club.
I think they literally dress him like the principal from the Breakfast Club at one point.
They do.
So
I think that
awesome.
was very intentional.
Well, they throw in a John Hughes like specific name drop, don't they, when Percival and him first meet?
Oh, yeah.
And his avatar is I assume, Vince McMahon, the ultimate villain. I love what a brilliant character thing that is. My avatar is me, but My hair is still dark, and I'm huge.
I'm also swole.
Looking like one of the
Not
main
even
characters from the cartoon Cops. I told you.
Not even the good kind of swole. He just looks like he's going to explode. There's a difference between swole and swollen.
There is no line. I cannot cross it. I do not see it.
He looks in pain. He's so swole.
But I think one of the things this movie does brilliantly is its use of cameos. Like, one thing I know I was kind of worried about going in was that they were going to take what was a very small part of the book and make it the entire movie, just nothing but cameo porn with no context. But this movie shows surprising restraint. Other than a handful of money shot moments, that stuff's pretty much relegated to the background.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about doing these in a movie. It's kind of like Wreck-It Ralph, where you can just load the background with them so fans are excited, but you don't have to stop and pause the camera and be like, look at Sonic now.
Look at him!
Jesus,
Look,
is it
I
like a
demand
porno
you.
director?
Look at his ring!
It's
Like-
chili dog time.
There's
He's going fast.
for most of the cameos, yeah, they just kind of gloss over them. I saw a new one the other day where the Pork Chop Express from Big Trouble in Little China is actually in the movie for like a split second. It's an obstacle all the racers have to swerve around.
That's awesome. I
catch
never
that.
noticed that.
Yeah, someone just posted a screen cap the other day online. Like it's one of those deals where when you're going through the movie, you'll have to like screen cap it second by second to notice the logo. So that's really cool. I love it when they do those brief little ones instead of being like, you have to pay attention to these cameos. Aren't they cool?
It blew our mind last night watching that and seeing Ace Chemicals in the background.
But on the other hand, though, there's the most flagrant abuse of what I just said, where they have the Shining scene, where they literally like, we have to go into the movie The Shining, and then they go through several scenes of The Shining scene, like exactly as the movie was. And yet, I would say that's my favorite part of the film by far.
It's delightful.
That whole scene was just amazing. I was not expecting them to jump into The Shining and for it to work as well as it does. Like, it just doesn't seem like seeing H and all the other CGI characters bumble around the halls of the Overlook would make any sense. And yet, somehow, boy, that looks like it'd be a lot of fun if you made that into like a VR movie.
Oh yeah, it's a work of art. Like I've heard Spielberg describe how they pulled it off, and I still don't know how they pulled that off because it looks like CGI characters walking around the actual set of The Shining.
Specifically walking around the set of a movie from the 1970s. Like, I feel like there's like a certain tangible grain to the background.
Well, if you look closely, I remember there is like a grain applied over the CGI characters too. I think everything kind of gets that film grain, so it makes it all blend a little more. It was funny. The second time I saw the movie, I went with a coworker who was a big fan of the book, and we sat down. And then the Shining scene starts playing. He leans over and he's like, "I've never seen The Shining. Is it a scary movie?" And it was like, "Oh wait, a character's about to say the exact thing you just said." Which is weird. So apparently is The Shining not part of the book? Is that why like he wasn't ready for that?
Every single challenge is completely invented by Penn.
Oh, jeez.
In the book, the challenges are just trivia based. Like the ending of the book is they recite Monty Python, the Holy Grail all the way through.
Oh, god damn it. That was actually a point I was going to bring up. Like, as a child, I thought that was humor if you just copied humor. And, like, I would do the same thing with my friends. We'd sit down and just do Monty Python over and over. And, like, years later as an adult, if I got dragged into that, I'd probably jump off a bridge. Like, there's a certain point where it's like, oh, God, no, this isn't actually fun. Just saying the same lines over and over again is not fun. And I don't know when that switch happened, but I turned to an old man at some point, started waving my fist at clouds, and I no longer enjoyed people just saying Monty Python quotes
It's the true
over and
sign
over.
the true sign of maturity. Man, as much as I loved that book when I first read it, that was the point where I was like, oh, yeah, this is written for like 13-year-olds, isn't it?
Yeah, so it sounds like they probably made some smart choices with their changes.
Oh, yeah. Which, again, not to shit on the book, which, as I cannot stress enough, is young adult and written in the 2000s.
This might be
Back
kind
when
of
the internet was better.
the glory days of the Wild West, and you couldn't use the phone and the internet at the same time. This might be a weird complaint, though, but like I kind of wish there's a little bit more information on how those stupid VR suits worked. Because at the end, we see people just running down the street with them with like their headsets on. And it's like, oh my God, you're going to run into traffic, you idiots. You're going to die.
They have picture in picture.
Yeah, whereas Wade's like in a moving van that has him rigged up to like a walking machine and rope so he can jump up and do kung fu and somehow not get tangled in his harness. I'm like, that seems complicated. The street urchins are just running around. They have gloves and that's it.
Well, that's why they weren't first to the key, Cody.
I don't like that. This comparison, like, oh, you don't have the trampoline. You could never be a glorious winner in the Oasis.
The trampoline.
Why the trampoline?
Well,
We have
just
to
think-
jump higher, Artemis.
Actually, think about that. Yeah, all of his movements are based on what he's doing in the real world. If he had a trampoline, he could jump even higher. He could have Mario jumps.
Stop trying to game the fictional game, Cody.
This is why you are not in charge of the Oculus Rift development.
Oh shit! Could you imagine an Oculus Rift on a trampoline?
I'm just imagining you in a room with like Sony or something, being like, okay, we need to find some way we can game some rubes with this marvelous new technology.
I fall in from the ceiling through glass. They've got like a glass window. Smash through that, bounce down. There's a trampoline in front of like the Shark Tank. I hit the trampoline, I spin in the air, and I land on one knee. I'm bleeding everywhere because I'm covered in broken glass.
You break your leg.
Probably. So I'm down on one knee, and I'm just holding out two mini trampolines. And I've got on sunglasses, a suit coat, and I just look fucking cool besides bleeding to death. And I'm like, the future is trampolines, noobs. And I throw them down, they turn to smoke grenades, and I disappear from the room besides the blood trail.
No, you disappear, then they look over in the corner, and you've died 3 feet from the door.
There's just one foot sticking up from behind a potted plant in the corner. And
Who
a
was
pool of
that
blood.
man? Was he trying to sell us Cheetos?
One of the Shark Tank guys turns and is like, I have a 10% founding interest in that company, I believe. Trampolines, baby. And then he bounces off a trampoline out the same window I came in through.
And thus the Cody Memorial Trampoline Fund was started. Going back to the movie.
Thank you, Jay.
What I love about the Shining sequence is it's one of the many moments in this film where you see the twinkle in Spielberg's eye. It's like, oh, you thought this was just nostalgia for you, huh? Because there's like Saturday Night Fever stuff thrown in there. Lots of stuff that's going to go completely over the heads of a lot of the kids watching the movie. It's just there because Spielberg wanted to direct it.
Oh, yeah. There is like a huge hodgepodge of nostalgia. From my understanding, the books were primarily focused on like movie kind of stuff from the 80s and video game.
Yeah.
Whereas the new film is you know, there's Gears of War characters in there and stuff. There's a lot of modern things. There's even more current anime stuff. There's a huge mix of current things mixed in there as well, which I would say makes sense. I mean, Ernest Cline is probably like, I don't know, I'm going to guess 30 or something when he wrote his book, so he's probably reflecting on a different childhood than a current audience.
Yeah, I think that speaks to something I've always found weirdly beautiful about this story, which is just the idea of children making something beautiful out of the garbage their parents throw them. Because we see that happen in every generation where every couple of years, everyone starts looking back to about 20 years into the past, usually into their parents' own childhood, and starts bringing everything back, but in entirely new ways that aren't quite what they were intended.
Are you talking about My Little Pony
Yes, actually.
and bronies? It's not all pleasant out there, is it?
It's magic, friendshipus.
We just lost 10,000 brony fans.
Hey, most bronies are harmless. Don't let the bad element turn you against the community.
The drug element.
I will say the dark side of the brony world is the weirdest dark side of any subculture. It's kind of amazing.
I'm going to steer away from this because I'm already scared.
But you see that in things like Parzival's DeLorean, which is the Back to the Future DeLorean, but with the Ghostbusters logo slapped on it, which some would call sacrilege. But I find that like a weird, beautiful little metaphor for the entire movie. It's like, hey, this kid doesn't really understand why the Ghostbusters logo shouldn't be on the DeLorean, but hey, he made something new. Isn't that interesting?
I think there's a lot of stuff about the way nostalgia is used in Ready Player One that people they look at it far too much at face value and not from a positive angle, which is what it wants to present itself as. Like, yeah, I think we all know nostalgia needs to be aggressively tempered, especially these days. And you can get far too lost in nostalgia or loving the things you liked as a kid and enrapturing yourself in that. And it can be incredibly, incredibly harmful. And I think, for a lot of people, they saw Ready Player One as a celebration of just blind surface level nostalgia. And
Yeah.
there's an element of that, arguably, in the movie. Yeah, like, it's, hey, isn't this, like, awesome? Look, a Gundam's fighting Mechagodzilla. That's cool. And I think, people need to be okay with the fact that can just be cool. And, it's fun. Calm the hell down and stop trying to, like, die on a philosophical hill for no reason.
If I can die on a philosophical hill for no reason, wasn't it a little weird the Iron Giant was punching shit?
It's okay. He wasn't voiced by Vin Diesel. It's not the real Iron Giant.
I want like a Bizarro recording of him, like he's in reverse, so I understand it's okay. He's not being peaceful.
He was still being heroic.
Oh God, he says Superman and then snaps a neck.
Oh no!
Give me your face.
Oh no!
I don't like
God.
this future.
Oh
This
God!
future I call home.
Put me back in the pizza delivery drone area. I want the real world.
But we see, like you called out, people making something new, combining things that seemingly should not be combined. Also see with the third act, I was struck by this when I was rewatching it, that how positive that world is. Everyone is brought together by their love of these things. You don't see a lot of, hate in the Oasis, even with the competition. Like, the only troll you see is IROC. And that's pretty much it. Like, everyone's really brought together by their love of different things. There's when H tells Parzival that don't be that guy when he puts the Buckaroo Banzai outfit on. Be that guy who dresses as their favorite movie to a date. And Parzival goes, but I am that guy. And it's just an owning of, like, yeah, I'm a fucking nerd. Like, who cares? Like, we're all nerds. And I think there's something kind of beautiful in the end, once you get to get all film analysis on us. But everyone's battling, like, this evil kind of corporate phony who wants to take over this stuff for, nefarious, just money-making reasons to turn into this purely no-love capitalist thing. Of course, all of this stuff that's everyone's loving is based on capitalism. It's all art is a business, as much as we don't like to admit it. But this is someone they clearly show, like, their underlings know a lot about it, but he doesn't know shit and doesn't care and finds all of this stupid, but he just wants to monetize it. And everyone is fighting that by essentially armoring up with the things they love, be it fucking dressing like, Spawn or Halo Troopers or the Iron Giant or any of these other things, using that thing that brings them all together. They all love that, is just our own personal canons and mythologies to actually fight back to save the things we love.
And there's also something just like very symbolic about, like you said, taking things that are IPs from other corporations and ripping them out of their hands and making them your own, and using it to then fight the evilest corporation of them all.
Yeah.
To give just a slightly different read on the Buckaroo Banzai scene, the
Anytime
idea
you can
that
say that is a good day, I have to say.
it feels good. But the idea that he's going to dress as his favorite character and it's kind of a test is a little weird. The idea that fans own something so much that it becomes their personality, it's not who I am, it's what I like, I think is concerning. And that's the point H is kind of to make, like, don't be that guy who judges other people based on if they get my references. Don't go around and just be like, hey, I like Buckaroo Banzai. If you don't know about it, you're not really cool. It's a kind of a gatekeeping thing.
while I agree, I never once saw Parzival dressing like Buckaroo Banzai as a test for anybody else, other than he was trying to find a cool outfit that he thought he looked cool in.
Yeah, but he definitely gets the hots for her when she recognizes what it is.
Who wouldn't, Cody? Yeah, there's stuff like that you can take the wrong way if you look at it through internet goggles. Like, especially the sequence where Parzival and Artemis first meet, and he essentially gives her a fake geek girl test, which we all know what that is. I don't think that was on Zach Penn's mind when he wrote it. I think he was just writing movie dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, and to even take it a weird step further, she kind of also does the same thing to him about Halliday. So it kind of does go both ways, and I think both are completely accidental.
I think it's meant to be less of a geek world gaming thing and more of a, hey, I do this professionally for a living, do you?
Yeah.
If not, don't waste my time.
Yeah, it just has unfortunate connotations. Do you kind of wish like an intern mentioned?
That's one of the things I kept saying during the run-up to the movie, which is, don't blame the book that because in the 10 years since it was published, nerd culture went full toxic.
Yeah.
Like, Ernest Cline is not responsible for the internet. Gamergate did not happen under his watch. He just wrote a nice book where everybody was friends.
Yeah.
Or so he claims. I have my eyes on him.
You see him cruising down Santa Barbara in that DeLorean.
And
with his trunk full of E.T. cartridges he pulled from that landfill.
And there are some unfortunate things, like with Wade is supposed to be a dumbass who's supposed to learn to be better. Like, he's supposed to be kind of like a surface level nerd, vaguely douchebag who's supposed to learn to be better throughout the course of the movie. I think they could have done a better job with that, but and there was some questionable stuff with the relationship between Parzival and Artemis that isn't really necessarily questionable, more so than just it's an adventure movie relationship. I just wish they changed one line, and that's literally it. I think that would actually fix a lot. Just don't have Parzival say after they've spent 2 scenes together that he loves her.
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
Yeah, and with Artemis's intimacy issues, like, I think you could have done the exact same scene with him just saying, I want to get to know you more, because it equals the same thing.
Yeah.
Or after he says that, she responds with, I have to go back to my home planet forever now. And then she pulls a Poochie and just leaves the Oasis forever.
She pulls off her VR helmet and does that weird fade away.
I think she was trying to sell me Cheetos.
Also, since we've kind of buried the lead throughout this entire episode, can we just talk about what a fun little gang these characters are?
That's honestly like my favorite part of the film. I think it wins me over a lot, just seeing the characters interact. It reminded me a lot of how I miss adventure movies like this, how I miss old Amblin movies and old Spielberg movies, and not even in a nostalgic way, but just the fact that these things used to have like groups of friends that you enjoyed watching hang out. And like the Goonies has no real plot to it, to be honest, but you just get to watch the characters hang out. And Ready Player One reminded me of that. Like, yeah, Real World or in the Oasis, I just enjoyed them hanging out. There was a lot of sweet moments, and it was all very sincere, which I enjoyed.
This is a world where a character like Artemis exists, and the fact that a hot girl is super into all of the stuff the other characters are into is not made a thing of at all, which it would be in virtually any other movie, which we saw again in the year before he wrote the book in Fanboys, which was something I really appreciated. That, oh yeah, Kristen Bell is just a nerd like the other kids. Let's not talk about it. Plenty of those girls exist. We don't have to make a stupid movie thing out of it.
It's actually all the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray. It's like 40 minutes of
pointing and staring.
Oh, woman! And then they do the invasions of the body snatch.
And I love how much the twist with H immediately endears you to that character. It's pulled off so well in the movie where they just don't acknowledge it for more than a couple of seconds. Like, yeah, I'm a black lesbian. Surprise. Anyway, on to the movie. Turns out your group of friends was really, really diverse all along.
And luckily, all of them are in Cincinnati.
I still say H just drove her fuckmobile from Japan to Cincinnati.
Was it Cleveland or I can't remember. Somewhere Ohio.
I believe it's Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
Cleveland.
a Cleveland megacity that's, I'm assuming, the size of 5 states.
That's one thing I will say does make the movie creak a little bit is, to borrow a junk food cinema phrase, a lot of things happen because movie.
Yeah.
Like, fuck it, they're all in one big city. We have to get this plot ticking along.
Yeah, honestly, I would usually call bullshit way more. But at the same time, the movie's really, well, it's trying to do a lot of different things, and Spielberg's really firing on all cylinders, and Penn's script really is. It's also just going, we're just aiming for fun here. So we know that you know, and I think we're okay with it. So hopefully you're okay with it too. Like, it kind of has that tone of it where it's like, yeah, they're all just right here. Yeah, this just ends up happening because it's a fun movie. Enjoy the ride. Like, it's kind of a roller coaster, a theme park ride more than anything else.
I mean, you could at least bullshit some kind of explanation because all of them except Artemis are all friends at the beginning anyway in this version. So you could just say, it's just they're on the same server or something. I don't know.
Drone delivery. Just dropped them right off.
Also, Shoto is an 11-year-old boy, and ninjas do not hug.
Aren't his parents concerned about this kid? Like, he's been
He's an
abducted.
Orphan.
Oh, okay.
I just assume that other larger child is raising him.
Yeah, I was shocked when you said that thing with Sho just isn't in the book at all.
Like,
Yeah,
he's not
that-
a character, or he doesn't get any of his arc.
He's just a grown man, and he dies whenever they blow up the stacks. They also blow up they attack the rest of the team, and Sho, or Shoto as he's known in the book. I don't know why they changed that. He's killed.
Oh,
So they're getting the egg for revenge in the third act.
that's a little bit darker, but okay.
And then Penn just decides, no, we'll make him an adorable 11-year-old boy who has ninja skills.
So in the book, did they explain in a little bit more detail how the IOI police force differs from, like, the real police force?
It's still kept pretty vague, but IOI is basically the company that controls America.
Right. I mean, that's the impression they give. And then it's kind of weird when, like, the real police show up at the end, like, you're going to jail forever, Mr. Bad Guy. It's like, oh, if only IOI had done more.
Well, it's a thing where it's like they only have control over shit they own, but they own pretty much everything because everyone is on the Oasis and everyone owes them money. What's really interesting to compare and contrast is in the book, Parsifal's the one who ends up going to IOI and being enslaved. After he gets buff, which I kind of wish they would have done. Just buff
It's like a
and
training
hairless.
montage.
Oh, the end of the second act of the book is really, really dark. After Artemis leaves him, he moves into the city and gets really swole and shaves his entire body and has an awkward encounter with a prostitute that he decides not to have sex with because sex in the Oasis is too weird.
That's a whole different thing from what we got.
Like, it gets really Taxi Driver for a chapter.
Strange. I don't know what to make of that.
The differences are so bizarre to me.
I'm not kidding when I say Penn pretty much took the premise, the characters, and a handful of moments and then just made a new movie.
Oh, good job, Zach Penn. I've always been a fan of yours.
I'm so glad that Zach Penn has a freaking tentpole movie to his name now.
Just had to punch that fucking Loch Ness monster in the face, and now I got a Spielberg movie.
He's got a tentpole that's not going to be swept under the rug like the Incredible Hulk.
Or rewritten by Shane Black or Joss Whedon.
Or Edward Norton.
Just imagine if we put all those guys in one room, the script that would come out. Or the survivors.
Edward Norton.
You think? He's got the guns?
Skinny guys fight to the meal.
I mean, but they call Whedon the Ginger Hammer, right? Like, I feel like he's got to be the muscle guy there.
Wait, I think
he would strike
we're
a
forgetting
deal.
a name here, though. Michael Dougherty. The wild card.
Next time on Celebrity Deathmatch.
Because he has the Krampus with him.
He doesn't get to carry his characters in with him. That's unfair.
I like how we're creating our own murder Ready Player One.
Let's face it here. If the Oasis were real, there would be just horrifying stretches of it where everyone's like, let's just make this murder bill.
We're doing it to kill Zach Penn.
Just all the darkness that would actually be in the real Oasis. Like there'd be people griefing Zach Penn every time he spawns. They just kill him again.
Yeah, last action hero.
He has no pennies left because people keep murdering him, taking all of his coins.
I do love that this is a movie where somebody explodes into coins and then somebody picks up a coin and puts it in their pocket. just think, Parzival owns a piece of that dude.
Yeah, for some reason, every time I try that in the real world, I get hauled into police stations. Give back that evidence. No, it's my kidney.
And then you're let out and somebody turns and goes, was he trying to sell us Cheetos? And I brought it back around. Which means we can end.
All right, before we close out here, everyone list your favorite cameo reference Easter egg from the film. You've got thousands to pick from. I don't want any duplicates. Go. Jamie.
I was pretty fond of the moment when Steven Spielberg directed Harley Quinn. What a weird coming around full circle for him, considering he was technically in the building when Harley Quinn was created.
Mike, go.
Let this forever be known as the time Steven Spielberg directed Spawn.
With Alan Silvestri's score booming.
And for me personally, I have to go with Chucky just stabbing the fuck out of people and getting the movie's only F-bomb.
Fuck, it's Chucky!
Not expected in the slightest.
F-bomb.
Oh, that made me so happy. All the horror references made me so happy.
The theater got a pretty good laugh at the Chucky bit. I gotta say, the crowd really reacted well to that one. Can't stop Chucky, man. You can't stop the Chuckster.
Only Dorf still did the laugh.
Well, I think we're surprisingly out of pop culture references for one evening, folks. If you would like to hear more of Box Office Pulp, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Stitcher. Just look Box Office Pulp up online, and we will be there. Probably underneath like a couple of Pulp Fiction links, but we're there, we're around.
Hey, we're the first thing that pops up whenever you type in Box Office Pulp.
I'll take that, that's pretty good.
Or are we? Because it's occasionally questionable.
What weirds me out is when I type in graphic novelism on iTunes and it's like 7th.
Yeah, that's weird. That angers me. Hey, listeners, if you want to fix that, I don't know how, but just help us out.
Just type graphic novelism a bunch of times in the browser. I'm sure that probably works. Or
I guess rate all our shows. Just, if you like anything, just, help us out, rate them. And then maybe graphic novelism can actually be number one when you search fucking graphic novelism. Or
a word we made up!
Exactly. It's fake. It's as fake as Ghostbusters.
Good heavens, sir. Well, I've had enough of these shenanigans. I'm pulling the plug. I'm so flabbered I couldn't even get that out properly.
Flabberdack?
Flabbergasted. I'm so flabbergasted. Making up words now. Also, no word we made up. Copyright Box Office Pulp. But that's a wrap, folks. Get the hell out of here.
And like that, he's gone.
Anybody else want Cheetos? That sounded like a potato chip.
Shh. They'll never know.
You lied through snack.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.
This meeting will come to order. The Legion of Pulp is now in session. In a moment, iTunes... Yes, Quizmotron?
I was wondering, Emperor Palpatine, if I could perhaps...
Box Office Pulp thinks we need a few items to pawn on the black market.
Box Office Pulp Guy, you have a podcast dedicated to movie analysis. Pinhead, your pleasure puzzles are deadly. Isaac, you've got corn.
Gone?
What more do you need?
How about a nuclear warhead?
What?
All other supervillains have them. With a nuclear warhead, I shall leave all other podcasts to tear themselves apart with paranoia.
Box Office Pulp wants a magic lasso to hang himself with.
Can I get a ship in a bottle kit
I demand more corn.
to make my own ship in a bottle?
Oh, enough of this. The hell do I look like, Santa Claus? We're wasting valuable time. Right now, my Pope drones are rewriting Atlas code to make our podcast #1 on iTunes.
Excuse me, Emperor.
Quizmotron, what is it?
All Quizmotron wants is pants. A decent pair of pants.
Darth Vader wants pants too.
Order! Order!
Glory to the corn.
Pain is not supposed to be this complicated.
Tune in next week at PulpPodcastNetwork.wordpress.com.
I don't even know how I deal with any of you on a daily basis.